Hello and welcome. My name is Nicholas and this is Literally Graphic. And today I will be re-reviewing Panther by Belgian author-artist Brecht Evens, translated in 2016 by Michelle Hutchinson and Laura Watkinson to be published by Drawn and Quarterly. While it didn't win, it was nominated that year for the Will Eisner Comic Industry Awards for Best Painter Multimedia Artist. And I just wanted to throw this out there that I would definitely do a content warning for talk about child sexual abuse. The apparently third standalone book of Evans's, translated into English at the time, Panther bears many thematic similarities to his earlier short story, Night Animals. I've not had the opportunity to read Night Animals myself, but apparently they are both about relatively young, the girl in Panther is younger, females who have run-ins with unsettling magical creatures. Interestingly, Night Animals is actually a wordless comic, but while Panther does include words, and sometimes quite a few words, the visual communication through the artwork remains extremely strong. Looking first at the visual aspects of this comic, this book really pushes all of my pleasure buttons when it comes to art styles, so while I'm certainly not alone in loving the controlled, colorful chaos going on in Panther, I'm also not anywhere close to unbiased. TLDR, for all those who have started following the channel since I removed all my original reviews, I love watercolor in comics. It's one of my favorite trends, really. And in Panther, watercolor doesn't just feel like a nice touch on a story that could be done in any style, as the vividness of the colors and the nature of the medium really accentuate the magical realism of the story itself. And instead of making Panther harder to read, the lack of more traditional framing, going with strong negative space instead, this blank space focuses even more strongly on what is going on between Christine and the Panther, isolating them even further from the outside world and removing other elements that might be distracting to the reader. Tied to both the artistic and more writerly portions of Panther, the next most important aspect of this book is the overall feeling of unease, doom, and impending filth, as it were, actually. Reading through several interviews with Brecht Evens around the time this English edition came out, I'm not sure that Evans is fully aware of the ways in which Panther appears to be grooming Christine, although this is also just an awkward topic perhaps for interviewers to bring up. I don't know. Even with all the ways in which public discourse around rape and sexual abuse have been expanding since the publication of this book, childhood grooming is a subject that I have been able to avoid thinking about up until fairly recently, and is only now something I am really trying to be able to recognize in my daily life. So I'm not totally confident in this quote-unquote accusation, although based off of Goodreads, I was thankful to see that I wasn't the only one with this thought. And again, perhaps I'm being too wishy-washy. As I wrote this review, I got a little bit more solid feelings about this, but it is hard for me to be too critical of people who weren't totally aware of all of this stuff when I wasn't totally aware, as it were. But I do feel like if it were to be done over, that such a touchy subject should not necessarily be toyed with as something that feels like this book is doing, but it is horror, so I guess maybe that's exactly what it should be doing. It still feels very much like it's punching down, which is not something I really have much patience for. As always, other people's ideas about this, particularly if they are constructive in some way and not just telling me I'm an idiot, are welcome. Is this a case of capitalizing on the pain of women because it's the worst thing a cis man could imagine? Perhaps. If all that hasn't turned you off entirely, I would recommend this book to people who are interested in the darker side of fairy tale, because that is another obvious impact on this work, combining an exploration into the darker implications of innocent children's stories with the friendly creatures turning out to be monsters, in contrast to the common theme of monsters turning out to be friends. The ever-changing look of the very charismatic Prince of the Panthers is very interesting and a large part of what kept me flipping each page. Besides the aforementioned creepy, rapey vibes emanating from each of the magical creatures, sexuality, race, class, and gender are not touched on in this book as far as I could tell. If you like this book, you would likely enjoy Beautiful Darkness by Fabian Vellman and Carascote, another book I should reread and re-review soon. Bye, y'all. Keep reading and resist the fascists.
And as always, I would like to acknowledge that, for the most part, all of my videos are filmed and produced on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, an Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation, land covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant.